with experts. I hope my presentation will be useful for those who have background, but those who would like to switch to a different domain, but they have second thoughts. Am I capable or am I not? I also hope that the business analyst beginners could be useful for them as well. I'm the first category. As an analyst, I worked for more than 4 years, and a year and a half ago, I decided to switch domains and to go to life science. I am Alena Demysheva. I represent the Quantori company. I'm business analyst. So I left e-commerce and I now am life science. Quantori develops IT solutions in life science. We make products for drug design. That's why every day my colleagues, business analysts, have to communicate with experts. I mean, professors, scientists, scholars, people with several PhDs, and it doesn't always go smoothly. And sometimes you feel certain discomfort after such communication. So I'd like to talk to you now. Has ever happened to you like you fear to ask a question and you think that your question is a stupid question and you decide not to ask it? I hope I'm not alone. Okay. Or perhaps you'd like to change domains, but you have second thoughts because you're afraid of the experts, and those experts are unfriendly, and it's difficult for you. Okay, after communicating with experts, you felt depressed, and you had no motivation, wanted to end the project and leave forever. Okay, so I would like to share my failures with you. I'm still going through that period. My first failure was I didn't talk. Was one of the projects. It was a cool project at the juncture of technology and science. The product we were developing was we were supposed to build new properties of molecules so it could become a drug. During the first meeting, I was just silent because his vision of the project was hardly understood. I could only catch 20% of it. I couldn't ask questions, so I was just listening. And when I had questions, and I did have questions, I was afraid to ask questions. I was just silent. Then, still, I thought I should ask a question. I tried to integrate some of the words he said. It was so funny. It was impertinent, out of place. It was unprofessional. At the same time, after communication, I said that artifact will be ready in a couple of days. I have experience, and I promised a result right away. It was a big mistake. I didn't allow any time for studying a different domain, and I did not record meetings. Audio, I used only my notes, and they were useless because unknown vocabulary and unknown domain never helped. As a result, my requirements were no good. I couldn't build some sort of communication with the expert. It was one-sided. Expert did not support us, and tolerance to change was non-existent. It was very hard. So I thought perhaps I am not good at this domain, so I thought I should look into the domain. So that was my second failure. That was a huge project. We were analyzing several thousand compounds, and we picked the right one for next stage of the drug design. So I was studying the domain. I was on the fly, as if I could see any formulation, a definition. I tried to memorize those. So it was just snowballing, and I was falling through and through. I was analyzing what is DNA, and it was like a textbook for me. I was deep into that work, but I'm a business analyst after all. I've been working for years. I felt I was a student because I was doing just the study. I forgot about my competencies. I never used them because maybe you had that pattern. When you received an F in math, you focused on the F in math, and you forgot about the literature where you received A. So as a perfectionist, as an independent personality, I never asked for help from my colleagues. And those tasks were quite complicated. It was difficult to approach those tasks. They were difficult to understand, so I postponed them. I just thought, should I start with what I was good at? So I had a lot of overtime. I was burning out. I was pushing the deadline. I was violating the deadlines, and my motivation was falling. And I was thinking maybe I should just change the project. Perhaps it was not for me. So then I understood that working in the new domain was such a great desire that I wished it so much that I wouldn't care about my fears anymore. So then I understood this didn't make any sense. And I thought something must be changed and I should change. So let me tell you what happened. And I hope this experience will be useful. I started with communicating with experts, so I thought I should work on that area first. So I started with hard skills. This is preparing for the meeting. I don't think I should dwell much on it. So when I was building this list, I was on BA book. So I would focus more on internal basis. So it took me about 2 days to write down my successes. I have 2 degrees, plus I received a grant, a 20 million Russian ruble grant. So I was telling myself, I'm good. I have achievements to be proud of. And then in the second column, I wrote down some of my failures, and I made mistakes. I survived, and that's what I did. So when you analyze your experience, then you realize how you can find solutions in difficult situations, and this gives you a basis.
Next thing I needed to fix is my approach to communications. I always warned about being nervous. You could say, I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm really nervous, and I think it sets the right tone. Then I reformulated some messages. So an expert would make a statement, and then I check if I understood him correctly. And this has a good positive impact on bilateral communication. If you're afraid to duplicate the statement, don't worry, just say, I'm sorry if I'm basically repeating what you said. It's no problem. thanking for a question is always very accommodating. And always at the end of a meeting, make sure you discuss which channel of communication is preferred by the expert. Don't forget about meeting notes. Meeting notes, I jotted down some things during a meeting. I would send them to an expert and then he would correct them if there were some errors. So project feedback was swift. We established regular contact with the expert. The relations reached a new and exhaustive level, and we did a great project in the top list of projects of our company. So we discussed how to prep for a meeting, how to converse. And let's move on. I know that I have a lot of project-related practices, and it's time to delve into domain. First thing I did, I would map a structure of what I need to examine, trying to narrow down the field by excluding biology, chemistry, or other fields which are necessary. For example, drug design, stages. I need to focus on those specific items. To avoid procrastination, you need to decompose a task. When we divide an elephant, we become aware of the horizontal strategy which we follow. You need to have a glossary to be on the same page with the expert. You can agree on the terms and statements in that glossary. And always, by all means, ask for help from colleagues, from fellows, from experts. Don't be shy, never be afraid. And project feedback again was outstanding. We met the deadline. My adaptation to the project was seamless, and I had a chance to offer some improvements for the project myself. I quickly recovered, so I was able to make contribution to the project. So we looked at how to delve into the main, how to not be self-conscious while communicating with an expert, but I do have a couple of other pointers. For example, I set a reminder alert. I'm a perfectionist, and those reminders told me that what I did was beyond perfect. I'm so afraid of not doing something ideally, so every time I got an alert on my phone, it was a great help for me. Use your strengths. I never did in vitro screening. I know how to fine-tune team processes or work with documentation, how to do grooming, how to accompany project from start to release. We have to be on an equal footing with our expert. Be equals with them. The most important thing is to create a good project. We need to bear that in mind. Allow mistakes, which is not typical of perfectionists, but I do recommend to keep an eye on this item. In the end, I wanted to say that I suggest to utilize your strength. Go in the direction where you feel confident. Gain your domain-related experience. Your experience is going to stick. As fear is not a good foundation to be grounded on. Keep trying. Keep trying those methods that I just related to you. Maybe you will find something new. Maybe you will work out your own personal technique. Otherwise, new projects or new domain areas will be a faraway land for you. I do hope that my methodologies will help you pick a new project or a domain area, get rid of fear, and achieve your goals and desires. That would be most grateful for me. Thank you very much, and let's have your questions. Thank you for your talk. Quite exciting. What do you think? Is it possible to avoid problems you mentioned by smart onboarding and by an inner mentor or in-house guru who would be managing you? I had an experience with immersion into a domain where there was an onboarding clearly set out, and team lead would go to all such meetings with experts to collect requirements. Do you have anything to say to that? Did it help you? Obviously. During month one, they would take me by hand and bring me to some meetings. Thank you for your question. Yes, it's a great opportunity to minimize risk and overcome anxiety. I was talking about underpinning where you are the foundation. There could be varying corporate culture formats without mentoring. In that case, you have to rely on yourself. You have to rely on some inner drivers. If there is a mentor, it's great, but they come together. It has to be considered as combined effort. Very good presentation. I realized that there are some domain areas that are pretty difficult. The drugs, chemistry, doing 5-year plan in 1 year. You said that experts do not support us. I think I have an image of science, doctors of science living in academia, in academic setting. How would you work with such doctors who are not very willing to work with you? And if they start disliking you, there'll be even more problems, hard experts to deal with. How do you do it? Actually, my advice list comes from that. Experts have a specific state of mind, they have a different mentality. They like it when you are able to communicate with them as equals, not as students. The key message is to listen and ask questions. They realize there is stuff to discuss with you. It helps communication. So my key message was to not be silent. Yes, they do have a peculiar state of mind, and there are a couple of tips I can give you on the fly. Allow time. If communication lags initially, just give it more time. Let scholars speak. They like speaking. It may create a problem, though, where a meeting gets stuck on one issue, one point of debate. So maybe it's relevant to say that there is a certain timeline to our meeting, trying to manage time, manage communication. I guess that's my initial response. Most importantly, never be afraid. I think fear is the worst. You may you may look like a student taking an exam, but that's not true. You're different now. Let scholars or experts have expectations about what you're going to ask by sending some questions prior to a meeting. Is there any toxicity threshold for experts where you know for sure this is the line I'm not going to draw, I'm not going to talk with those experts? No, never. I always manage to set up communication and get communication going. Why do you think those experts may act like that? It has to do with the format of their work and educational background in general. Such experts spend a lot of time on their own, perusing or studying, reviewing literature, and they see no point in communication because it's written in paper. Why even talk about it? I guess they don't see the value in what we're doing, and sometimes you need to showcase that value, which is fine. Maybe this is a first encounter with business analytics for experts, and you need to find a good way in, and not to show who is the smartest man on the block.
Irina, first of all, I'd like to thank you for quite an inspiring presentation. I'm so happy that I'm not alone. My question is about experts. Do you think it's a good method? I mean, when you tell an expert, let's look at this case with the help of a simple example. So simplification, is that a good method? I worked with information security people, speak a different language, and I try to use this dumbing down approach. Well, yes, sometimes expert could be could get antsy over it. It depends on many criteria. If you've been working with that expert for about a year and you build some sort of camaraderie, then you can ask him to dumb it down. But then, if it's just the first time you're seeing that expert, you might try simplifying or rephrasing that yourself. And so make that example yourself. If so, that's what I'm saying. Try doing it yourself. Well, then you might be corrected. So if you're corrected, and hopefully without getting irritated, without looking for some professional lingo. But again, if you've known him a while, then you can ask an expert, but do this. But you can do it yourself.